Hello, happy Monday. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in reciting the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? I'd like to invite Chuck Hyatt for our invocation. Chuck?
In this Thanksgiving season, join me in prayer. Our Father God, we are so grateful to you that we live in a city of prosperity. We have opportunity to be people of privilege because of what others have invested in us. And we recognize that there are possibilities so far beyond what we can imagine. And we are grateful for all of that. Looking back, we thank you for those who were willing to receive our ancestors into this country and for what this country has done for our families. Lord, as we look forward, we recognize that all the world, all the earth is concerned. And we ask you to intervene and help and bless according to your amazing plans and privileges. Thank you for those who farm, who take the risk of planting the seed, waiting for the rain, enjoying the harvest, and feeding us. Lord, we thank you for the food we've shared together today. We pray it in your name. Amen.
Well, welcome. The week of Thanksgiving. I don't know about you, but Thanksgiving is one of my most favorite days of the year, and I hope everyone is in store for a wonderful, wonderful week. We have a few guests among us today. I'd like to do introductions of those folks. Let's start with Eric Erickson. You have a guest.
Yes. Go ahead. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Thank you, President Cindy. With me today is in his new role as with External Affairs at South Dakota State University. Is it Associate VP of External Affairs at South Dakota State University. Your favorite SDSU alum, Vernon Brown.
Welcome, Vernon. Nikki Gronley, you have a guest.
Thank you, Rotarians. Today I have with me Michael Fry. He is our Public Affairs Officer at Rural Development with USDA.
Wonderful. Michael, thank you for coming today. Kathy Thorson, you have a guest.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I have the pleasure today of introducing as my guest Nick Brown. Nick is the Regional President for Central Bank and has made application for membership. So please join me in welcoming him.
Nick, thank you for coming. I brought a guest. If she would stand, please. With me is Casey McCarthy. She is part of the Maximizing Excellence team. Casey, thanks for coming today. And we have roaming Rotarian Dwayne Walk with us as well. Dwayne, good to have you here today. Greeters, thank you so much for bringing that welcoming smile to each and every one of us as we walk in the door. It's a great way to always zoom into our Mondays each and every week. We have junior Rotarians with us. We have Sam Vondra from Lincoln, Nancy Peter from Jefferson, who I understand played in the championship game with volleyball this year and just this weekend. And then speaking today will be Carson Weiner from Sioux Falls Christian. As we have celebrated each week of November, I would like to invite Kayla Etrim and Steve Sikorsky to talk about Rotary Foundation Month. Are you both coming? All right, awesome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm pretty much just Steve's hype woman. So get ready for that. But what we are here to talk to you about, once again, is the opportunity that we have as the Downtown Rotary to fund a project to take wheelchairs to Uganda. So there is a lot of opportunities that we have available to us this giving season. If your mailbox is like mine, there's a lot of things that are happening in our community and our state. This is one thing we would love to have you consider once again. We are planning to send out a letter once we get final approval from Rotary International to ask for your thoughtful gift toward this mission. You will have information in that letter that gives you the link to donate or a QR code that you can scan on your phone. And we will talk more specifically next week once we get that approval from Rotary International. But what we wanted you to hear today is really what happens on the ground when these wheelchair distributions happen. Dwayne's gone on many of them, Steve has as well. So he wants to talk about his experience. You see here the product that we'll be delivering to Africa through this project. And he's here to share more about the specifics of this international opportunity and really just hopefully tug your heartstrings and encourage you to consider giving to this great option. So Steve.
Well, thank you, Kayla. This is the application, all 12 pages of it, that we applied for this almost $59,000 Rotary global grant for a wheelchair project in Ukraine. Not Ukraine, Uganda. So right now, the application is being reviewed by a committee, and then once they say, yes, it's just the way it needs to be, then they will submit it to the Rotary Foundation. And after they get the approval from the committee, then they will approve this grant. The grant is number Global Grant 2237635, which you will hear about many times here in the next month or so. So what we're trying to do, we're going to partner with a organization called As One Ministries. And you will remember last spring we had their CEO here as a speaker. And As One Ministries is setting up medical clinics all over Uganda. Right now, I think they've set up 6 clinics already because all medical attention is needed all over that country. So the global grant is what we're attempting to do with the money that we raise in District 5610, is we're going to send 50 pediatric wheelchairs and 80 adult wheelchairs. Now, this wheelchair right here is a pediatric wheelchair this particular one was built in Rock Valley, Iowa. And they're adjustable, so you can put a 4-month-old baby in there that needs a wheelchair, and they can be adjusted and made bigger and bigger and bigger all the way till the child is 19 or 20 years old, and then they need to go into an adult wheelchair. We do make these wheelchairs at the South Dakota State Penitentiary. But right now, that is a little bit on hold because the penitentiary is having a lot of trouble recruiting correction officers. So if you know anybody that wants to be a correction officer at the South Dakota State Penitentiary, we would welcome their coming up there and being hired so that the 41 gentlemen up there who are inmates that build wheelchairs and have been building wheelchairs for many, many years, so that we can go back and build as many as we need, because there's a tremendous demand for them. So in addition to the wheelchairs, and this is a joint project with our Rotary Club and a Rotary Club over in Uganda, that they're in Bugari, which is about 75 miles northwest of Kampala. And in addition to the wheelchairs, we're going to take medical supplies over there because these folks that work at the clinics and in the hospitals, in the medical business over there, they have no idea about some of the things that we use here in the United States to help them with the patients. And for instance, this is a slider board. This is a board that you use to put between a bed or a chair and the wheelchair to slide the patient across from either from the wheelchair into the bed or from the bed into the wheelchair. And we buy these from Amazon, and then we pack them in an old suitcase and take them over there. But as we've discovered in many of the distributions that we've done in the past, that the people outside of the United States didn't know anything like this ever existed. And we also take gait belts. Gait belts are belts you put around a patient to hold on to the patient as they walk down the hall in a highway or in a hallway or in a clinic. And so we take those. We're also going to take crutches. We're going to take walkers, and we also take canes. And one of the big parts of the budget for the global grant is we're going to buy in Africa, we're going to buy a ultrasound machine, because they have a few of them in this country that's got a tremendous amount of people, but they don't have many ultrasounds. So when a woman is with child, they hardly ever get to see, the medical people hardly ever get to review the status of the baby with an ultrasound machine. So that's $10,000 part of this $58,000 budget. And they just have a tremendous need for that. So as soon as this global grant gets approved, then we are going to ask for downtown Sioux Falls Rotary to help us getting the funds. Our share is $32,000, and we already have $20,000 raised. So we need another $12,000, and then we will be able to partner with Rapid City, Sioux Falls Rotary West, and Custer Rotary, and get this wonderful project done in Uganda. Thank you.
Steve, Kayla, thank you so much for bringing the club up to speed with the project and for your passion to bring mobility to so many adults and children. Certainly grateful for that. We have a new member induction. I would like to invite Dave Osted and our new member, Julie Jansa, up to the stage.
Thank you, President. There's a little confusion out there. Some of you felt I was the new member today, and I just want to be clarified that I have my 20-year pin here, which also corresponds with the number of meetings I've been to. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm also thrilled to introduce our new member, Julie Jansa. Julie is a good friend of mine. She is married. She has a husband, Ryan, that she puts up with on a regular basis. 2 kids, Isaac and Reese. And between that, their family alone, this will make all of us envious, they have put together 54 state titles in golf, which is pretty good. That is actually 54 more than I have. That's pretty good. Her daughter, Reese, last year, her senior year of school at Harrisburg, became honored with the best high school female golfer in the United States. Not bad, not bad. What I'm most excited about, I am board chair of First Tee, and we selected Julie as our executive director a year ago. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our new member, Julie Janza.
Thank you, Dave. I did warn him to be nice when he got up here. For those of you that know Dave, he's full of jokes. I am the executive director of First Tee South Dakota, which is a youth development organization. We teach kids life skills, core values, and healthy habits through the game of golf. We are a nonprofit, so we do serve the underrepresented and the underserved kids, not only in Sioux Falls, but right now we're all the way up the eastern side of the state. Through all of our programs, we reach over 32,000 kids annually. So we see kids on the golf course, we see them in the after school space, and we also see them in the elementary schools. I'm very fortunate, as Dave talked about, mostly my husband's and my daughter's golf accolades, but I'm very lucky to be able to partner the two passions that I have, which is impacting kids through the game of golf and also just bringing them to a sport that's meant so much to me throughout the years. Being part of the Rotary has been very exciting for me. When Dave first asked me to join, I grew up in Canada. There is Rotary up there, and the small town I was in didn't actually have it. But when I married into the Janza family, my father-in-law was a member of, I believe, this club, and he was in the international Rotary as well, and won some golf tournaments. Imagine that in the Janza family. But he won quite a few in the international space and was able to travel the world, really representing Sioux Falls in that way. So thank you for having me, and I hope to get to know a lot of you throughout this time.
Julie, so glad to have you as part of Downtown Rotary. And I have a feeling Dave's attendance is going to go up because he will come with you on a weekly basis, and we'll all be glad to have you both here. Dave, thank you for bringing Julie into the fold. I will now bring back Kayla. No, not Kayla. Eric S. Erickson is going to come up and introduce our junior Rotarian, and we'll get a chance to hear from him.
Thanks, President Cindy. Whenever I talk to these junior Rotarians, when Kayla lets me talk to them, I always say you're never going to speak to a group of adults who are rooting for you more than Rotarians. So thank you for being welcoming to our junior Rotarians. Today we're going to hear from Carson Weiner. Carson is a senior at Sioux Falls Christian. He's involved in golf. I'm not sure where he ranks on the high school golfers in the United States, but he's in golf. He's in band and choir, jazz band, and he's in debate, which we're going to hear about today. He's served at the banquet. He leads worship at his church and in youth group, and he's involved in Collision, the ministry here in town. His hobbies and interests include playing guitar and piano and just music in general. His parents are here today. If you guys want to wave, Robin and Tom are here to support. All right, and Grandpa. All right, thank you. And he's got a couple of siblings, Peyton in 8th grade, Lydia in 5th grade. And so with all of his interest in music and ministry, of course, you would probably guess what he's considering at college. He's going to be an accountant. So at least you'll make a living while you're being... So the $100 that Rotary is donating on Carson's behalf will go to the Sioux Falls Christian debate team. So please welcome Carson. I'm going to get this right. Weiner. There we go. Carson Weiner.
Good morning. Thank you, Rotarians, for allowing me to come and speak and listen in on all of your meetings. It's been really informational, and I've really enjoyed being here. Thank you, Eric, for your introduction. As you said, my name is Carson Weiner. I'm a senior at Sioux Falls Christian, involved in a lot of fine arts activities as well as golf. And as I've been listening to these meetings and kind of coming and watching everything that goes on here, especially the four-way tests and these panels have really reminded me of the activity that I love so much, which is debate. And I've been a part of the SFC debate team for 4 years in a category that they call public forum debate. And so public forum debate is designed that any random adult from the United States that you pull off the street should be able to understand what your debate is about. So you have to kind of cater down whatever the topic is so that it can generally be understood by anyone who comes in the room. So we've had topics from things like organic agriculture to offensive cyber operations to nuclear policy. And currently we're talking about the Great Power Competition, which is competition between the United States, Russia, and China to basically dominate world order. And so we've had to research all of these different things. So going through this whole process of debate with my coach and teammates has just made me realize how important public speaking and civil discourse is in this world right now. As we see, they're all over media. People struggle to have decent conversations with each other and talk about real world issues in a polite and professional way. And I think debate has taught me that skill and allowed me to use that throughout other areas of my life. The three main things, though, that it's taught me is first the way to see both sides of an issue. So in public forum, you prepare arguments for both sides, and you really don't know what you're going to argue until you get in the room. The judge flips a coin, and you get to decide which side you pick. If you win the coin flip, if you don't, then you're just stuck with whatever the opponent isn't doing. So you have to know both sides of the argument well to win the round. The second thing it's taught me is the value of research and writing. So finding a good source is always important. Linking those sources together to make an argument that actually has some sort of impact in the round is extremely important. And researching correctly and efficiently is a major skill that I've learned not only in debate, but also for writing things like research papers, resumes, other things like that. So that is a major skill. And then lastly, kind of like what I talked about before, the ability to have civil conversations with other people about things that we disagree about. And those being able to progress forward and have an actual purpose in discussing those issues. So those are the three main things debates kind of taught me. I would just like to encourage all of you, if you're interested at all in judging around, anyone off the street can judge. So I would encourage you, get in touch with like a local public high school. They would be so glad to have you judge around. Just let them know that you would like to judge, and you can easily get in there. If you would like to talk to me, you could probably judge for our school because we're also looking for judges. And we'll just give you a quick rundown of this is how a round works. This is what you need to look at. So I would really encourage any of you, if you would like to judge, just try it out. It's not as scary as it probably seems. My dad has judged multiple times. My mom does not want to judge, but that's okay. So anyway, thank you again, all of you Rotarians, for allowing me to come and speak and listen to all of your meetings.
Carson, thank you so much for that wonderful perspective. And I'd like to thank his family for being here and supporting him. You're raising a wonderful young man, and we're so lucky to have him in South Dakota. Now, on to our program. I would like to invite our panelists and moderator, Luke Lindberg, to the stage. While they make their way, I will read just a bit to tee things up. Today's program is on the USDA Climate-Smart Grants to improve South Dakota farming. Our very own Luke Lindberg, downtown Rotarian, is going to moderate our discussion exploring how the USDA's recent Climate-Smart grants hold the promise to improve farming practices in South Dakota. He is joined by Daniel Scholl, SDSU's Vice President for Research and Economic Development, David Kiesner, Director of Business Development for Milborn Seeds, and Ryan Eichler, President of Buffalo Ridge Cattle Company. Thank you all for being here. Luke, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, President Cindy. I kind of want to judge one of those debate competitions on the global power competition with China. Who's in with me on that? Quick show of hands. Thank you all for being here today. This is a topic I think is both timely. We heard in the invocation this morning that we really have a lot to be thankful for when it comes to our agricultural producers here in South Dakota. I think we all realize that, right? We're coming up on Thanksgiving, and we'll have turkeys on our table, and we'll have food to eat with our families and relatives. But what South Dakota agriculture is also doing is filling a real need in some interesting global power competition. Talk about our aspects with China, but Ukraine right now is having extreme problems, as we know. Hard to get grains, products, and things out. Well, American farmers are filling that gap, right? They're stepping in and providing products that otherwise would not be available to people around the world. And just this past week, the UN hosted their climate conference. Many of you may have heard about this. Well, we're also solving those problems right here in South Dakota. And these Climate-Smart grants are one example of which South Dakota farmers are leading the world in developing the next technologies to protect our planets and to invest in conservation activities to help us make sure that we have the farming practices we need for generations to come. And so it's my pleasure to have these three gentlemen up here with me today. I'm just going to give some brief bio introductions, but at a high level, the South Dakota State University received roughly $80 million, the largest grant in SDSU history from the USDA for these climate smart projects. And these are three people who are partially responsible for getting those grants here to South Dakota and also for executing on the mission that's been called out by the United States Department of Agriculture. First with me here is Mr. Daniel Scholl, who serves as SDSU's Vice President for Research and Economic Development, where he passionately promotes research partnerships that harness innovativeness and creativeness of SDSU's faculty and students to solve real problems in business and communities. Before entering the Vice President role in 2017, Mr. Scholl led the South Dakota Agriculture Experiment Station and Culture of Agricultural and Biological Sciences. And Daniel's academic background is in veterinarian medicine and livestock disease epidemiology. Before joining SDSU in 2011, Daniel studied and worked in Quebec, Louisiana, the Netherlands, and California. We're pleased to have you here, Daniel, with us today. Thanks. Next up is my friend David Kiesner, and David is the Director of Business Development for Millborn Seeds in Brookings. Millborn Seeds is the region's largest seed specialty company. They produce and distribute over 1,200 unique seed species utilized in agriculture, conservation, and land reclamation. I'd be remiss to tell you as well that David is a friend of mine and was a longtime poet employee and is a real guru on international business and how agriculture here in South Dakota is impacting the world globally. Thank you as well for being here. And finally, Mr. Ryan Eichler grew up in a farm and ranch north of Aberdeen, South Dakota, near Columbia. He's a proud 2001 graduate of SDSU with a degree in animal science. Ryan has spent 20 years working in the beef industry and is currently the CEO of Buffalo Ridge Cattle Company, headquartered in Brookings. Ryan and his wife, Megan, along with their three sons, live in Lake Preston, South Dakota, on a family farm and cow-calf operation. He's a founding member of the South Dakota Cattlemen's Foundation and has served as the president of that since its inception in 2013. Please join me in giving a Rotary welcome to these three gentlemen for being here today. All right, on to the meat of the discussion. So Daniel, I'm going to start with you as the position at SDSU, your vice president position. So you guys are one of the big winners in these climate smart grants, particularly from USDA awarded 70 projects around the country. You were one of the larger winners of those. Can you talk a little bit about why SDSU was so well positioned to take advantage of these grants when they came out?
Sure. And look, thank you very much for your introductory comments. And you made one comment that I want to respond to, and that is that the three of us were all instrumental in getting this grant. They were, but I wasn't. Our faculty, it's our talented faculty at SDSU who are really the keys. And anytime you apply for funding in a competitive situation, there's always some element of chance as to whether or not your ideas or our ideas will resonate with the review panel, but there's a lot that you can do to put chance on your side. And in this case, there are a couple of elements that are particularly important. And these are important to how we do our work as a public land-grant university. One of those is we need to have good people, good scientists. And just over the last few years, we have been building our team of data-driven, science-enabled range scientists and systems scientists who are in a place to seize on the opportunity when it arose on very, very short notice, wasn't it? Really super short notice when the USDA announced this program. The other element of that enabled us to control chance, so to speak, was to capitalize on investments that the university, that the Board of Regents, that the state of South Dakota have made recently in agriculture research capacity. For example, we've been developing our capacity at the grazing research station, field station in Phillips, South Dakota, to do precision grazing research. And that research is critical for this grant, where we'll be developing, in keeping with the USDA's mission under this program, we'll be developing precision grazing management techniques, which then are packaged to transfer into the private sector through our collaboration with our partners' organizations. So that leads to the third part, the third element, and that's partnerships. And at risk of being tedious, I want to read to you just a list of the partners on this grant to underscore how complex it is, but how critical partnerships are for a university to have an impact on the private sector, working through the private sector. So besides SDSU, SDSU Extension is a partner. The SDSU Center of Excellence for Bison Studies is a partner. Then AgSpire, Tonka Fund, National Bison Association, Millborn Seeds, Buffalo Ridge Cattle Company, Cold Creek Buffalo Company, Smart Score AI, so we're getting into the artificial intelligence aspects of this work, Yardstick, Texas A&M University, and CLOC. About half of these organizations are South Dakota, or more than half, are South Dakota organizations. And so these partnerships, which are built over time, are absolutely critical for being ready to seize upon an opportunity to have a big impact.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Fantastic. And I know one of your partners in this effort is Millborn Seed. So David, over to you. You and I have talked a lot about Millborn Seed over the past year and a half or so, and the tremendous growth opportunity you guys see in the conservation space. Talk a little about what Millborn Seed is doing and what your role in this grant will be.
Yeah, so thanks, Luke, and thanks for having me here today. I left a handout describing the two grants that we're discussing today if you need any background, but the grant that I'm particularly focused on is cover crops and increasing the utilization and adoption of cover crops across the northern plains in the U.S. Millborn Seeds today is the largest cover crop distributor in North America. So as an organization, we've already been preaching this for over 30 years. And now we have this tremendous opportunity where the federal government is recognizing the benefits of sustainable agriculture. So they're really injecting the stimulus into what we've been working on for many years. And we're also seeing demand from different supply chains, whether it's biofuels or food production, that are looking upstream in their supply chains and asking their partners to adopt sustainable practices. So what we bring to the table is the seed to transition into a sustainable system, but also the expertise and technical services to help the growers and farmers to do something different when they might have years of tradition of how they manage the land that their family has farmed.
Fantastic. And Ryan, over to you on Buffalo Ridge Cattle Company. Tell us a little about what you guys are working on, and specifically, I think there's a component here that says one of the priorities for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is part of USDA, says that one of their goals is to support soil health through integration of livestock on the land, and I think that's the part of the component of what you guys are working on. Tell us a little bit about that.
Correct. Yeah, thanks for having me, Luke, and thank you to the Downtown Sioux Falls Rotary. The beef industry has always been central to the way of life here in South Dakota, and quite frankly, into Sioux Falls. The Sioux Falls Stockyards was the center of the universe of the beef industry for quite a number of years, and so we're really proud to be a part of not only the industry at large, but we're really proud to be a part of South Dakota and to be here today. When we think about what these grants are aiming to do and what our part in that can be is people have been on the land here for a couple generations now and really stewarding the land in just a great way. So part of this definition of sustainability is really the longevity that the industry has provided. It's provided plentiful ways of life. It's provided business opportunities, and it's really kept people on the land. And so when we think about the opportunity in front of us to develop this market and to understand more about sustainable practices, what we're actually looking at doing is how do we take a really good system and make it even better? And so today, most food companies are looking for what that solution is. And it doesn't matter if it's a directive that's being driven by an ESG goal or a commitment to sustainability through supply chains like David mentioned. What we've really found out over about the last 12 months and even prior to this grant award is these supply chains want to know where food is coming from, and they want to know the manner in which it's produced. What this grant is going to really allow us to do as a cattle producer here in South Dakota is it's going to allow us to work directly with farms and ranches throughout the state to implement practices that would add additional benefit to the land. And that can be anything from intense rotational grazing, the utilization of cover crops like David mentioned, or interseeding plants and different species on some of the rangeland. And I think the easiest thing to look at and the thing that we hear the most about is carbon, right? We all want to know how to increase and sequester the most carbon that we possibly can. And the great news is there's only really 3 ways of doing that, of sequestering carbon. One is a man-made machine that would pull the carbon out of the air and takes a tremendous amount of energy to do so. There is a mineralized rock that will actually capture carbon out of the atmosphere. But the third way is through green living plants. And the best part of the story is that ruminants, particularly cattle, sheep, and goats, is their grazing activities on non-arable land in the U.S. are what really provides the best and most efficient way to sequester carbon. And so not only that, but those plants also fix nitrogen in the soil. And so really what we're tasked with doing is helping to improve the practices and management in which we can maximize the health of the soil and really ensure that not only do we come up with a story and a market for our responsibly raised product, but really that we increase the longevity that people are on the land here in South Dakota.
Can I jump in and
Please do, yep.
add to that? What's exciting about this project, I've spent my entire career in the university, so to speak. I graduated, went back to university, and then started working in universities. But what's exciting about this is under one single umbrella, we're taking techniques developed, tested, and documented in a research setting, and almost in the same process, transferring them into the private sector in a way that users, adopters can derive value from that. And that's exciting. And that's what the Land Grant University is all about.
That's one of the things that's amazed me as I've thought about these grants is the true integration between the federal government, being involved with universities here in South Dakota, and obviously the business community has an important role to play. Can you guys talk a little bit about what does this mean for South Dakota? What do you think is the result 3 to 5 years down the road that we'll be able to look at, feel in this community around Sioux Falls and the state that's going to be a major impact for our community? And I'll let any of you jump in to begin.
Sure,
Ryan,
I'll
ready to
start.
go.
I think what's really unique about the opportunity that we look at in front of us today is the beef industry is becoming more consolidated, just like a lot of other industries in the United States. And I think the biggest opportunity for us in the upper Midwest is really the story that we have around land use. We're in a very resource-rich environment in which we're in this really cool transition zone, right? We've got highly productive farmland in the eastern half of the state, vast rangelands in the western half of the state. But in between, we've got all this opportunity to create a very intensive production system that allows us to keep more of the animals that we raise here and take more value from what we're actually producing. Because today we're in an industry that we end up railing out a lot of our resources, right? We rail corn out of the state. We truck a lot of cattle out of the state. But really, as we examine what the sustainable future looks like, using the resources we've got here and then partnering with food companies to help consumers, quite frankly, understand the story of beef production and why the upper Midwest is so well suited to do these things. And so I think from a benefit to South Dakota in general is we really believe that we will add value to the end product that the consumer is demanding because we provide such a great story from an environmental impact.
You sort of danced around the term a little bit, but are you talking about value-added ag here? I mean, is that I know that sort of has some baggage to it, but is that the term you're referring to for the most part here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know what that exactly looks like in 5 years. I think we all want to add value to the production here. But I think what makes it so different in South Dakota especially is we've got the resources to really support what we're trying to do. If you take a look at the beef industry in different parts of the U.S., there's obviously different challenges, from water availability in the southern Oglala Aquifer to having to ship in a lot of the feedstuffs needed to finish cattle. We've got a lot of those things present right here, and an infrastructure that, quite frankly, will support that. And so, to me, it's very exciting because we are so blessed with resources here to take advantage of.
Amen. I know I like getting my quarter cow from my wife's cousin twice a year, so it's I'm bought on board of that model as well. For sure. David, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think as this grant program relates to the state and the impact it's going to have, there's going to, if we execute properly and get wide scale adoption of cover crops, it's going to have big environmental impacts for the state, for watershed districts, soil health quality. There's a very long list of benefits for cover crop utilization. But to the broader business, really the idea is this is a bridge to allow farm producers to adopt the new practice and kind of de-risk that transition period into sustainable ag. And that's going to position the state to be a premier supply chain partner for other industry. And really the whole idea for us is we want to make farmers more profitable and help them implement the right practices. So the farm income is going to be impacted. And then the market access opportunities, if we're doing things right, that your multinational food companies are looking for in their supply chains, that brings them to South Dakota to secure their raw materials that go into their supply chain.
And I would add, in addition to the project-specific application that my partners have identified, the way we're doing this project represents some impact for South Dakota as well. I've already talked about this, but because it's important, the way that the public sector, the university, is partnering with the private sector to have an impact out in the countryside and in the marketplace, that's exciting. And being able to do that kind of thing over and over and over. I hope this isn't our last $80 million or $50 million or even $20 million project. And I'm convinced that it won't be, but being able to repeatedly and predictably partner together is very exciting for South Dakota's future as a leader in the agriculture, climate-sensitive, climate-smart agriculture industries that provide value for growers, but also value for consumers.
Yeah, perfect. And David, I want to jump back to something you said briefly, which I think the way in which the average family farm in South Dakota farms or ranches may change a bit because of this. That's the whole idea, is there's a transition phase from one type of farming or way to do things to another. Is that what you just said? Did I just pick that accurately?
Yeah, I think you'll see some change over time in the crop rotations that farmers have market access to grow. So if you think of South Dakota, we grow a lot of corn and soybeans because of ethanol processing and soybean extraction plants.
That's an understatement, by the way.
Yeah. But we're seeing demand for specialty grains to go into food production. We're seeing demand for alternative oil feedstocks that will go into renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel. And all of those markets are looking for low carbon, sustainably raised feedstocks. And I think being a part of this program and this transition opens up doors for farms to experiment with new crops that can go into different markets.
And Ryan, how about on the protein side?
Yeah, I think just to piggyback on what David was talking about, some of the most progressive operations in South Dakota have been regenerative or sustainable long before this term was cool, right? If you take a look at the central part of South Dakota, those folks have been utilizing winter cover crops for over a generation because they knew that with a green living root in the soil, the dirt didn't blow away in the wintertime. And so what we've really learned and what we hope to transition more producers to is a lot of what these increase intensity of practice, adoption of some different types of cropping from what we're looking at it, is strictly from a grazing opportunity. And it'll add a tremendous amount of resiliency to the operation. And so we're going to use the grant dollars, which in our case, a high percentage of those dollars are for producers to adopt different practices and then to take advantage of premiums for their end product. And so while there will be production changes, it'll be great for the industry because it'll continue to add resiliency to those operations.
One thing I'd like to add to what Ryan said is, so the funding in the grant program under the cover crops, the majority of those funds are going to be direct payments to farmers to help ease the burden of investing in this new practice. So that's, it's one additional resource to the many other resources that are out there to incentivize sustainable practices.
Perfect. Thank you. And Dan, talk to us about what this means for SDSU as sort of a flagship university project. How much is this putting us on the map as a place to come and do ag-based research and all of the work that's going on with this grant and further down the road, position us for more opportunities like this?
There's no question that success breeds success, and that's true in the research university environment. That's true in the agriculture environment, agriculture research environment. This certainly has attracted attention among universities throughout the U.S. It enables us to continue to attract excellent faculty and retain excellent faculty. This is a place that communicates. This is a place where you can do exciting things that have a real impact in your career. That helps to attract students as well for the same reasons. But what we need to do, we need to build on this. In fact, when this was announced right away, someone congratulated me, and I said, "Yeah, well, this can't be the only performance in our show. We have to do this over and over and over." And what we expect to learn from our work under the umbrella of this grant is to fine-tune the way we go about our public-private partnering, so that we can do more of these types of programs efficiently, effectively, repeatedly, predictably, and therefore be in line to continue to compete effectively.
Love it. Perfect. You guys have all talked about partnerships, and this is a community of influencers who come from all different types of industry here in the Sioux Falls region. What can they do to help you all succeed on these? I mean, there's insurance and banking and teachers and all kinds of people in this room. What does a partnership look like with the folks that aren't already at the table, and how can we help you be successful in this effort?
Yeah, I'll start on this one. I think what you're going to see as we start rolling out these programs is we're going to get enrollment from farmers across the state and across the region, and they're going to be looking to insurance partners and finance partners to make investment in the future of their operations. So I think the support that this community is already providing to the ag economy in South Dakota, you're going to see an uptick in activity because of this.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think about the single largest thing that you can do is to really just spread the word, right, to customers, both in agriculture. As we roll this out in 2023, we'll obviously be looking for folks to sign up, right, and for pilots. But the other opportunity that I believe we have is before the grant and before all of this discussion, we were engaged in several pilot projects around the U.S. To examine exactly what we're talking about doing now. And so we've kind of got a jump start to some of these projects. But I think the opportunity lies is the livestock that's produced here has always been highly sought after, both domestically as well as in foreign markets, because of the quality of cattle that we produce here. And so what I think is really unique now is anything that we can do to add to that story of what are already world-renowned genetics is we will continue to increase the value of the commodity that we produce here. And so any of those types of things, we are an open book. We love the community here, the community at large in South Dakota. We're open for all sorts of partnerships. So really look forward to discussions going forward.
I'd love to see nothing more than us do more international trade of beef. I think that'd be fantastic for our local economy here. So Dan, anything you wanted to add to that?
Well, certainly stepping back a little bit from the university perspective to do what we do, to fulfill our role as a university in this project and projects like it, we need expertise. And so our young people who are graduating from secondary schools here in Sioux Falls in South Dakota, encouraging them to pursue their careers by getting a four-year degree and possibly even going on to graduate school and taking their best capabilities and focusing them on solving real problems for our economic strengths, that would be a really valuable contribution all the way around, from student development to economic development.
Absolutely. Yep.
I would just add on to that. I think some of the biggest challenges we face as an organization are people. And so when we find good people, it's really our responsibility to identify their talents. And so other partnerships could be, including if you know people that are really interested or involved in this space, regenerative agriculture, cattle production, it's not going anywhere. And so this set of organizations, whether it be the university, Millborn, or Buffalo Ridge in a production setting, we're always looking for really good people. And so we've really got a runway of about 5 years worth of a project to keep several people busy. But outside of that, our organizations are all growing. And so people is still a giant need.
We use the expertise that we have to access aren't just people who are nutrition experts in ruminant nutrition experts, or people who are range scientists. We need plant scientists, botanists, mathematicians, economists, data scientists, and chemists, biochemists, and so on. There's a lot of space for expertise.
These sound like good, high-paying jobs that we like to have here in South Dakota.
For sure.
Amen. I'd like to give the chance for folks from the audience to ask any questions. I saw Governor Newgard's hand go up first.
As you begin to roll this out, will you be contracting directly with farmers? I'm thinking, say, northern Minnehaha, where I live. Most of the cropping is minimum till, but there's no cover cropping, virtually no cover cropping done. I'm also wondering, in the description that's distributed, the language is a new category of climate-smart cover crop seed. This implies to me that you're not going to till the cover crop under, but collect the seed from it. But I'm not sure. I'm just wondering, what would a farmer in northern Minnehaha County do in this program? How will you incent that farmer, and give some specific examples? Like, do you want them to plant oats? Do you want them to plant flax? Will it just be a cover crop? Will they harvest that? Will it be an alternative to corn or soybeans in their rotation? Or will it be an added cover crop in addition to the current cropping practices?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the first part I'll address is, are we intending to collect the seed as a cash crop? There's really a wide range of opportunities within this grant. It could be introducing a cover crop that does get tilled back in for soil health and all the other benefits, but there's industry and markets that we're helping connect the bridge from specialty crops to utilization in the marketplace. One specific example, our organization has been working with some of the largest oil companies in the world that are investing in renewable diesel production. And their targets for the facilities that they're building require millions of acres of oilseed production. And we know that we can't get there by increasing soybean production acres. So one of the ideas that's being pursued by that industry is rotational cropping with a cash cover crop. So camelina, which is one of the varieties listed on that handout, would be a cover crop that you would plant after you harvest your corn. And then you would harvest that oilseed crop in the spring before you plant beans behind it. So those are the type of opportunities to create cash cover crops, which bring additional revenue back to the farm. Now the agronomics for that program are going to fit specific regions, and we're covering really a multi-state region with this program, so it might not look the same everywhere. But you mentioned oats and some of those other specialty crops. We will be a partner in bridging the growers to commercial offtakes.
As far as the livestock project goes, we will work directly with farms and ranches. And the way that looks today is we're actually in the process of setting the criteria of one additional practice adoption, whether that is a grazing system, the introduction of cover crops, as well as really the largest component is to identify farms and operations that really haven't broken virgin sod, done those types of things. And so the producer will be incentivized in the livestock program two ways. One, they'll be incentivized if there is any cost of adoption of the practices. And then two, a good percentage of that payment that we're working with is actually going to be producer premiums. And so there'll be a predetermined premium over top of the market for the feeder calf at weaning time, basically.
Brian, when a cattle rancher in South Dakota gets ready to sell his steers, where do they go? Do they stay in the state? Do they go out of state? And if they go out of state, is there ever any hope that there will be a cattle processing facility in the state of South Dakota, as far as you know?
That's a great question. Calves from South Dakota literally go all throughout the country, right? Most of them stay in the center of the country. A good percentage of feeder cattle are fed within probably, I hate to even put a number, 250 miles of the center of the state, right? So calves do stay home here in South Dakota. A lot of South Dakota cattle are fed in Iowa, Nebraska, and then, of course, freight becomes more prohibitive as the further south you go into the larger feeding areas in Oklahoma and Texas. But what I would say with future processing is I believe those are always opportunities. If you take a look at Dakota Ranch Beef in Aberdeen, that plant was built, I don't even remember how long ago, 10 years ago. Currently, they serve as a really nice market for producers here in South Dakota. I think what we'll continue to see as we look at the resiliency of the supply chain, that we will start to see more processing capabilities. I think if we learned one lesson during COVID-19 was that the resiliency of our food supply is really important. And so I believe we'll continue to see investment in processing.
What can you tell us about the beef processing plant at La Plante, South Dakota on the res?
That I don't know a lot about, quite frankly, yeah.
I'll visit with you after. Sounds good.
I think we have time for maybe just one more question. Andrew's got somebody in the back.
Oh, okay. Jared McIntyre, I'm an economist, CEO at Dakota Institute here in Sioux Falls. Proud SDSU grad as well. I'm kind of curious. It's something you guys have touched on a little bit, but I'm really interested in the supply chain, the ecosystem that could sprout up around sort of the value-added ag. So I'm kind of curious if you guys could key in a little bit, maybe put your big sky hats on and tell a little bit about where you see potential future opportunities, with the success of these kind of programs. If we're able to change some practices, we're able to move the needle in some of the direction that you're working on here, what might be some of the new opportunities, business opportunities, ag opportunities that might become available for South Dakota?
Well, there's a few that are taking place already in the state, and probably projects that a lot of this group is aware of. But the South Dakota soybean processors are building a new processing plant that's going to be able to process specialty oil seeds. That plant's going to be located in Mitchell, South Dakota. That will be a strategic asset for growers that want to grow specialty oil crops that gain a premium in the biofuels markets. You're seeing similar investment for jet fuel production in Lake Preston with a company named Gevo. And they're very focused on creating a low carbon supply chain for the corn that they use as a feedstock. And the best way to do that is to implement no-till or minimum till practices and the utilization of cover crops. So again, we're starting to see that investment come to the state because we are a large corn producer. We have a pretty robust ag economy here, and we're going to fit into some of those specialty markets that will bring a bigger premium back to the farm.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, the term that gets used a lot in the grain is source or identity preserved, right? Is taking that grain that's used in food and really telling the story behind it. I believe livestock production is down that same path. Our organization is involved with a couple pilots with leading food retailers in the U.S. And it doesn't seem to matter which food retailer it is. The use of regenerative practices, carbon sequestration, this whole space is really open for business. And so the way we see it in partnering with those food companies to identify what they're looking for today and then implementing it here on the ground in what we believe is the best place on earth to raise livestock, I think those opportunities are limitless. And we get asked quite often is how far in the future is this? And I believe it's about 2 years ago, right? Because we attended the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef Production a couple weeks ago in Denver. And the prevailing thought is that we need more discussion and more collaboration, which is always true, partnerships. But we really believe that the time is now. And so our opportunity starts today. And hopefully right after the new year, we'll have a program set out that's very regimented, easy to follow, easy to implement. And then it's our job to help create the marketplace for those commodities.
And I would just, if I may, just
Please.
really briefly, stepping outside the specific subject matter of this grant, there's a lot of opportunity to add value to our commodities through transforming them into other products, using biotechnology to bioprocess commodities into new products. Ethanol is a wonderful example. Value-added nutrition products such as fish meal replacement through Prairie Aquatech, which is physically located next to South Dakota soybean processors in Volga, is another really good example. There's a lot more of that to come, especially with South Dakota's investment in bioprocessing R&D capacity. Exciting times ahead.
Beautiful. Let's give them one more round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming today.
Thank you all for sharing this innovation with Downtown Rotary and for your passion to feed the world, because that is what each of you are doing every day for us. Looking at next week, November 28th, infrastructure development and what's next with Jeff Eckhoff and Mark Cotter. As you go into this Thanksgiving week and I think about what I am most grateful for, I truly am grateful for spending Mondays with each and every one of you. I love this year and I've enjoyed every single week, and I just want to thank all of you for that. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Rotary is adjourned.